everybody, and welcome to our first LeSS videocast. I'm Wolfi. Today with me is Elad, and we will be discussing interesting topics related to large-scale product development. Today's topic is definition of done. And before we go on topic, let's have a quick introduction. Elad, who are you?
Yes, I am Elad. Nice to meet you all. Nice to meet you, Wolfi. I'm a software developer, first and foremost. This is what I do. About 10 years ago, I started with my agile coaching career, and recently a few years ago, became a certified LeSS trainer. I was born, raised, and I live and operate from Israel my entire life. I love the outdoors, I love nature, and also as a fun fact, I'm an amateur DJ. Back to you, Wolfi.
Okay, thank you. So a few words about myself. My name is Wolfgang Steffens. I'm certified LeSS trainer, certified LeSS coach, Scrum Master, system thinker, system thinking. And it was 2005 when Greg and Buzz came to Nokia at that time, Nokia Networks, and then I started to hear for the first time about Scrum and these ideas, and ever since my learning curve basically started there. I was born in Germany. I live in Finland, and well, I do cycling, motorbiking, and kenjutsu.
Kenjutsu.
Yeah, that's the art of sword fighting, Japanese art of sword fighting. Yes, it's very much fun. Yes.
Okay.
So before we start with the topic, let's little bit look at the format, how we do this. So we will have two questions in which we will present this. Each question we will have about 5 minutes time box. And maybe we need the 5 minutes, or if we don't have anything to say anymore, we will stop earlier. Okay, and now, before we start the discussions, let's recap what is actually a definition of done.
A definition of done is a product level agreement containing all activities that needs to be completed in order to declare a PBI as done. PBI, by the way, if you don't know, is a product backlog item. Often in large scale development, the skill level and ability of the teams to actually ship a product every 2 weeks is not existing. So it's not enough for the product increment to be shipped. We need some extra activities, right? This means that the definition of done does not describe what we call a shippable product, but in such a situation, we will name the product backlog item as undone, which means there is still work to be done after the teams are done. So while it is compliant with the definition of done, which Scrum will call as done items, it's not really done. In LeSS terminology, we refer to these items as undone. Common examples of undone activities are stuff like marketing, like non-functional testing, and others. Now, if a product backlog item is worked on, but has not yet reached the definition of done by the end of the sprint, in terminology-wise, and for our discussion, we will name these items as unfinished. So we have 3 different terms. Done, which means it is compliant with the done and shippable. Undone, which means it is compliant with the definition of done, but not really shippable. And unfinished, which means there is still work to do even to get it to done, whatever done means. Does that make sense, Wolfi? Was that sufficient?
Yeah. Thank you for the comprehensive introduction. So interesting point. So what would you prefer? Would you like to have more unfinished items or more undone items? So unfinished, as we just heard, so you will need to work on them in the next sprint.
Okay, so I think the easy answer is, of course, we would all prefer to have everything done, right? So neither unfinished nor undone. We would prefer to have everything which is completely done and shippable, like many companies are able to do. So every time, like all of the continuous deployment movement or school of thought is about being always at a state of done, being always ready to release whenever we finish some piece of functionality or product backlog item, we can immediately, without any delays, ship it to the customer, which means I prefer neither. I prefer to have things that are done, not undone,
But
nor unfinished.
but as you said, in this imperfect world, so where we do have still a lot of work which the team cannot do today in every sprint, then we will have undone items. So the question is now that does it really matter? I mean, that you need to do the work anyway, sooner or later. But why not just say, okay, we have a very broad definition of done, and then we just need 2 sprints or 3 sprints to get all the things done.
So I guess that really depends on the situation and the business and the market. If you are really, it is very important to continuously release, like in any kind of B2C application, any kind of something that is widespread and requires continuous updates. In that case, probably I would aim for having unfinished items. I would say, okay, so you need to work some more in order to learn and be able to ship it as fast as you can. So if I would go to the unfinished suggestion, I would say, okay, continue, just continue struggling with the items. Now, sometimes that is very hard to do. For example, marketing. Let's say that a part of the undone or the marketing is out of the definition of done. Or so would we leave it to the team to handle marketing if they have no skills, no knowledge, and no access to any of those? The answer is not. So the other side of the coin is the undone stuff. When would we prefer to have undone? I would probably assume that never again. But if I would have to compromise, I would make this compromise in situations where releasing often is not important enough. So there are other things, yes.
I have a little bit, let's say, worries that if you think that you need to release often and you have things unfinished, you have no clue where you are. So if I now imagine that you on my mobile phone, I get like everyday updates on whatever program, and if those items would be unfinished, this is like untested code. I mean, that is, I think, isn't that the worst nightmare you can have? So you rely on a very high quality product that this what you can install without doing a check anymore is really working. But if the team has unfinished items, then basically you're sitting on a bump. You don't know when things will crash.
Yes, you are right. The risk is there. And this is why I say I prefer neither. However, in a situation where we need to release often, I would rather have bombs blow up in my face. And I would rather have the team focus on learning and being able to get the items to done state. And from my experience, one of the reasonable ways of doing that is actually allowing the teams more time to learn and adapt and figure out how to get the item in a more shippable state. And if that requires 1, 2, or 3 more sprints, I would personally be willing to sacrifice transparency and sacrifice predictability for learning.
So on the other hand, it could be so that your sprint length is too short or too aggressive. So actually, if you would have 4-week sprints, then you would be able to get, in your example, something into it.
Well, I would strongly disagree with that. I would say that if I have a 2-week sprint and I'm not being able to get things done within 2 weeks and extend it to 4, and I will be okay. So this goes into how do we split our backlog items? Are they small? Let me go to question number 2. Mr. Stephens. Here we go. If there is one definition of done, right? And this one definition of done is not perfect, right? We also have a subset of items that are not part of the definition of done. It needs to be accomplished by the end of the sprint. Why don't we have a second definition of done or a third definition of done, like an epic level definition of done, a release level definition of done? And if we have those, what could be the side effects or the consequences?
Yeah, yeah. Good question. Good question. I think from an practical point of view, so I will only answer from a practical point of view because LeSS doesn't say much of anything to this whole thing. But when we were having this kind of bigger projects and we had this kind of bigger undone section, the question was really that how do we get an understanding when are we done with this release? So when do we then have the capability to ship something to the customers in the end? And so there was a need actually to create some kind of done criteria or done definition for to get an understanding of where we are with this. The problem what I see here is that it might tend to some kind of milestone criteria checklist. So especially if you think about the organization has just moved away, they are now skipping the milestones, but then now basically reintroducing them in the worst case through a DoD for a release or so. Um, it's something which certainly needs some coaching and some attention. So it's not self-evident that it goes smoothly. You know?
Okay. So
About
my
Epic,
question is, yes,
yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
About the epic done, I don't think there would need to be a definition for epic done, because an epic, if I think about a structure, so this sounds to me like you would imply a structure in the product backlog concerning like we have epics features, whatever. So, but they're all product backlog items, and in this way, if you have a product backlog item which consists of, in order to get really value out of this, you would need several product backlog items to have this. Then you will see it anyway from the backlog. So you would not need a definition of done in any kind for this epic.
Okay. So
What do you think?
yes. So then my question to you, if we have, you're saying I don't want a definition of done for the epic level. I want a definition of done for the product level, the standard definition
Mm-hmm.
of done, and then potentially another definition of done for the release, like all of the stuff. Is that what you said, right?
Well, there would be in ideal case only two. So the definition of
Yeah.
done for the sprint and one definition of done for the release, which comprises of all the other stuff which needs to be done on
Yeah.
product
So
level.
like
Yes,
done and then done.
kind
So
of.
yes.
Yeah. Mm.
So who will take care of all of the items, for moving the items from done to done? Is there?
That's an fantastic question. Yes, I have been thinking about this also. So basically, in LeSS doesn't give any answer as such. So I think these are exactly the planks which are inbuilt in LeSS, so that you fill them up by yourself, so that
Okay.
you don't prescribe everything upfront how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, I would say who is responsible, or who makes the decision to release? It's the PO, it's the product owner. So in this way, I would say the product owner needs to somehow get it organized together with the teams, with the organization. They have to find a mechanism to understand where they are. And if there is an undone department, you might have some kind of people there who are looking after this. But we want to have as much of the coordination done by the teams, not by external coordinators. So that's the other side. So we need to be careful not to build up a kind of a release management department, because that's not what we want.
Okay. My difficulty with having two definitions of done, even though I realize that in some situations it could be useful, is that it actually pulls us away from flow. So if we are
Mm,
looking for a flow kind of
yeah.
situation when there is
Yeah.
no states, right? An
Yes.
item is either in the
Yes.
backlog or handled by the team or shipped to the customer. So we have three different
Mm-hmm.
like statuses in the
Yes.
sequence. If we add another one, then we add another queue, then we add more delay, then we add bottlenecks, then
Yes.
we remove or reduce
Yes.
transparency, which you were
Mm,
so anxious on keeping just
yes.
a few minutes ago. So I think there's no clear-cut solution, as you say.
Yes.
Hopefully by, I don't know, 2030, the majority of organizations will be doing continuous delivery and have systems to back this up.
The time is up, Elad. So
Again.
maybe now, since you were so in the flow here, what did you take away from this second part here?
I think the most interesting takeaway from what you said was that it's the product owner's problem. This is something that never occurred to me. So you want a definition of done and you want to have another definition of done, it's your problem. You're going to have to deal with that. If you want to release undone stuff, so I don't have a clear answer to this, but I know I need to think about it. Is the product owner entitled to decide to ship undone stuff? My first intuition says yes, because like is the owner, right, responsible for ROI? If the product breaks and loses all of its customer base,
yes,
well, the product owner is yeah,
yes.
He has the authority to do that. He can shut down a product. Interesting. Thank you. That was great, Wolfi.
Okay, and that is the end of this video cast. So, Elad, will you close it?
Yes. Really, it was the first one. I had a lot of fun. Thank you, Wolfi. Thank you very much for whoever it is you're watching. It could be 2, 5, 6,000. I don't know. And I think Wolfi and I, we hope it was valuable for you and you found the conversation interesting, and really invite you all to post comments, suggestions, feedback, any kind of future topics, because we plan to do more of those. So thank you, and see you next time.
Okay, see you. Bye-bye.